Okay, and video?
Yes,
okay.
Video is on.
We are ready to start our afternoon session. Welcome, everybody. And wasn't the lunch great? Wow. I hope everybody got what they wanted. Okay, we're going to focus on paratransit today. Could I have everybody's attention, please? Thank you. We're going to focus on paratransit this afternoon, and we're going to start out by hearing about a service that is just across the bay, and it is a very good paratransit service, unlike the one we know and love here. It has not been perfect, but when they started it, the San Francisco Paratransit Coordinating Council, PCC, I don't know how many of you knew the late Jewel McGinnis. Yeah, she was instrumental in helping to establish that paratransit service. And they submitted a declaration of principles to Muni, and they said, this is what we expect from you. And they created what they called a multimodal service, which means that there's not just the reservations, the advanced reservation. They have taxi service built into the ADA paratransit system. They have group vans. They have a system called Shop Around, where they will take you to stores and wait for you. Yes. But before I do that, just for 1 minute, I used to work in radio, as some of you know, and I found a quote from a disability rights activist who I think many of you either knew her personally or knew of her, Judy Heumann. Yep. And what she said then really rings true today.
Many people feel that they have a right to leave their house, to go out on the street, to visit stores, to go to the movies, to come and go as they want with spontaneity. But as disabled individuals, we have somehow given up that right to that type of spontaneity, the ability to go and come when we want. And we've accepted that as something that happens because we have a disability. But the reality is, it isn't because we have disabilities. It is because of inadequate policies. It is because of lack of appropriate money.
So, absolutely right on. So now I am going to find
Part2
just a minute.
Part1 MP3.
Hold on.
Part1 MP3. Part2 MP3.
Just a minute. Okay, what am I doing here?
Delete file.
Part2 MP3.
Oh no! Sorry about that, guys.
Part1 MP3.
Wait a minute here.
Part2 MP3. Rehab cuts MP3.
Okay, here, just a minute, sorry. Okay, I got it.
Sandra
All right.
MP3.
Now, Sandy Fancher could not be here today because she is attending an annual driver recognition and awards luncheon that every year their Paratransit Coordinating Council gives, hosts. And it's a wonderful thing. And she told me she would love to be here, but she recognizes those drivers and she wants them to know that she appreciates them. And she is very active in the PCC, and so I talked to her a few days ago, and here is what happened. San Francisco Paratransit is regarded by many people here in the Bay Area as quite a unique service, and justifiably so. Speaking with me today is Sandra Fancher. Most of you attending the workshop today know Sandy very well. She's an active member of the Paratransit Coordinating Council of San Francisco Paratransit. And the reason she's not at the workshop today is that she is attending the PCC's annual Driver Recognition Lunch. Is that correct, Sandy?
Yes.
And I want to welcome you.
Thank you.
San Francisco Paratransit has come a long way, and the Paratransit Coordinating Council is not just some small advisory committee. You kind of like tell Muni in many cases what services you require.
Exactly.
What is San Francisco Paratransit? What services are offered besides? It's different from East Bay Paratransit.
Yes, besides the large vehicles and the minivans, we also have taxi service, which we have debit cards. The ID. And the way this is done, we put money on an account in the broker's office. So when we call a taxi, we use our picture ID card for the driver to swipe and the fare. And whenever he does that, then that takes away money from our account to pay for our fare. So we can't just use anybody else's picture, even though someone has even tried to use a picture ID of someone else. But that's how we pay our fare. And it works quite well. We have this Clock Wheel, Luxor, Yellow, and Veterans have, just to name a few, that are part of the Paratransit program. And it works quite well.
Is there a limit as far as the number of rides you can have per week or month?
No, no. You use it as often as you like, because basically that is what the only service some people use is the taxi. So it works quite well.
How much does the debit card or rides cost? Or is it...
Depends on where you're going. For instance, you might go somewhere and it might cost you maybe $6 or $7. So it all depends. But we are not allowed to use our taxi to go to the airport.
Oh, because that's ready wheels.
Yes, and that's over out of the county. Yes.
And when you use taxis, is there a certain like discount that you get?
No, you just pay your regular fare. Whatever comes up on the fare box, that's what is taken away from your account that you have in the box. And we can also call to check to see what we have left in our account so it won't get so low. Because if it does, it will show that you have no money in your account. Even though sometimes it does that, and it's not true. Sometimes the drivers, claim you don't have any on your car, but you have to just make sure they know how to work the equipment.
Taxi fares are pretty high though.
Yes,
so,
they are.
So it costs a lot of money to
Depends on how often you use it. You can use it up really fast.
Now, how do you put money in your account? Do you have to send checks to the broker? Or?
No, you go down there and put the money in your account, whatever you want. I think if I'm not mistaken, I know people who have as much as $300 in their account. So, you just have to keep up with it yourself.
Now, besides the taxi service, you have the normal kind of what they call regular conventional paratransit service.
Yes.
Reservation.
Yes. And we also have a service called Shop Around. This works for the van and the taxi. They go to a particular store twice a week. You call you call Shop Around Services, make your reservation, and to be picked up whichever day you would like to go to the store. If you use the van, the driver waits for you. You have 1 hour to shop. You are allowed 3 bags. If you use a taxi, it is the driver's choice as to whether they will wait for you or not. So obviously, if they don't wait, you have to call a taxi. I'm sure some of them would prefer to be out there trying to get, fares instead of waiting for 1 hour. But that's a good thing for the van. You don't have to worry about calling this taxi. Because the driver is for you. As long as, even though they might, let's go this way. You don't say so. As long as you're back to the house, it's fine. And you don't have to worry about station leaving you because they stay.
So there's a store near Safeway.
You can go there, yeah. As long as you're back in the house.
Now, how much the service cost?
Oh, it's the fare, $2.50.
So,
It was free for at least a couple years. But when the fare went up to $2.50 in July, the fare on Shop Around went up also.
So the $2.50 is also the fare for the advanced reservations?
Yes.
Later,
Yes.
Like what we have these paid paratransit.
Yes.
Okay. Any other services that are?
Yes. Trip info. For me, whenever I make my I'll find a call. the day before and the day of. I always receive my reminder calls the day before between 6 and 7 o'clock. It tells you where you're being picked up from, where you're going, and the time. The next day, you call in maybe 5 to 10 minutes before your ride comes. It tells you whether they're late, whether they're on time, the estimated time of your destination. And they will let you know if they're going to be late. You can either cancel your ride late. So they always make sure you know one way or the other.
So this is far more comprehensive than what East Transit is with their numbers and, 8, 2, yeah.
And, also, so when we call to make reservations for dispatch, we give them out. And then when you give them your ID number, it pops up.
And
they know who it is. No, we call it provider.
And how has it worked out with the new broker that you had some? No longer.
It's SF Access operated by. Oh, and also this is in Brisbane, but it's very small. The lease is up there in March. They have 2 places here because they're trying to get back to San Francisco. We don't know where they are because they're still in negotiations. So hopefully by March, they will have, decided where they're going to. The place is so small, so they need big spaces. So San Francisco is where they're trying to get back to.
If people are interested in using San Francisco Paratransit, because you can if you live in the Bay Area, even if your home paratransit is different, is there a phone number for the broker?
Yes. The phone number is for the reservation for the dispatch is 415-285-6945. And the paratransit office, which is at 68 12th Street, 351-7000. And you listen to the menu and it tells you whether you want customer service, complaints and compliments, or whatever you're trying, a certification, information, whatever you want. Just listen to the menu and it will direct you to the person where you're trying to get.
Finally, Sandy, the PCC has a very big role, an important role in actually operating the service, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little about the PCC?
The PCC, Paratransit Coordinating Council, I think we have at least 35 representatives, and they represent different organizations. And we attend meetings and we listen to, I forgot to tell you, we have subcommittees for blue van, we have a committee for taxi, route taxi. And taxi, route taxi is taxes, regular taxes, and route taxes is for ramps for people with wheelchairs. So we have a planning committee which plans different things. For instance, the annual luncheon that we're having this Saturday. And
that's to recognize the drivers.
Recognize the drivers of vans, taxi, individuals who have done great work during the year. And we also have a Hall of Fame, people who, have done good things. And we get a yearly report of everything that PCC has done for the year. We also have special guests. We had Willie Brown, we had Mark Leland Lee, people in charge of Muni. But PCC, we go there to the meeting and listen to reports from the manager of Transdale, who is Mary McLean. And if there's something that we have questions about, we also do that, even complaints. And sometimes they don't always get solved right away, but we still try. And they understand that we are there to let them know what we need for our comfort as seniors and persons with disabilities. We also have blind people that but we're going to have our annual meeting in November, and we'll meet again in December. And also, I forgot to tell you, we have 2 luncheons a year. One in June, Jewel McGinnis Appreciation Lunch for the representatives. Then November, the yearly Paratransit Annual Lunch. This has been going on for over 30 years. And we meet quite often, and it's quite interesting. So we have a nice group. Some people aren't able to come like they are because of health reasons or whatever. But we still have a good group. Very, very active. We have different guests come there to speak with us.
In closing, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, as good as San Francisco Paratransit is, there is always room for improvement, and we hope to continue to improve and learn from our mistakes to be the model that we hope to be for others, and to just continue to let the staff of Union know that what we are in need for, and hopefully they will listen to us, and we will be fair and listen to them as to whatever it is that we need to help each other with to improve our services.
Sandy, thanks so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you, Jim.
And that's it. So, I hope you enjoyed that. I just thought it was a great thing to hear something positive, from San Francisco. It's so close, relatively speaking. And I think that we could do a lot, possibly, to enrich, hopefully, East Bay Paratransit. It's going to take a lot of work, but I think the more voices they hear, I think they will be willing to do that. Now we're going to shift quickly to Boston, and oh, it's not, okay, sorry. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Okay, I love technology when it works, right? Now we're going to go to Boston, and the interesting thing here is that the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority started conducting this pilot project for on-demand paratransit with Uber and Lyft, and I've been trying to find out how they've done it. And I've been trying to contact people. I contacted Tom Hayes, who is in charge of policy partnerships at Lyft. They gave me his email and his phone number, and I believe I put that down on the list. If I didn't, I will circulate that. And he wrote back. I've sent him a few emails that he's traveling and he has these automated messages, etc. So I hope that I'll hear from him next week, and maybe we can get an entree at least with Lyft and start talking to them. And the big challenge that we have here is that we have, instead of one big transportation authority in the Bay Area, we have something like 30 different transportation agencies, and we have a regional planning agency called the Metropolitan Transportation Commission that doesn't have any direct authority over any of those agencies. They advise and they give money to them. So who knows? Maybe we can find some way of penetrating them. But what happened in Boston is that there were a lot of demonstrations against what they call the ride, which is like East Bay Paratransit. And people in wheelchairs were chaining themselves to the doors of the building and not letting people leave, enter, or exit. And this was back several years ago. People were stranded, and there was really serious problems, probably even worse than here in some instances. And also they have in Massachusetts a Republican governor named Charlie Baker. And it's very interesting. Charlie Baker has been trying to urge the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, which is a very, very large transportation system, and it is is a division of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. And he's urged them to cut costs. Well, what do you know? So one of the ways to do that is to subsidize Lyft and Uber rides. And the seniors and disabled people who use the ride or their paratransit were enthusiastic about the idea and urged MBTA and sent letters and flooded them with phone calls. So last October, they started this pilot project. And it's been going for a year. They started with 400 riders. And just this past month, they opened it up to everybody. Actually, I think it was in September. They opened it up to all riders. So people who have not used the ride for a long time but are eligible to use it started asking for rides. From February through October, they had over 10,000 rides. And they were surprised that the demand for Uber and Lyft rides quadrupled compared to the number of rides for regular paratransit. I'm not surprised. I don't think any of you would be. When you take, there is a limitation because this is a test, so there's a limit to the number of rides you can have per month, depending on if you had used paratransit previously. Since a lot of you, for instance, use paratransit exclusively, you would be getting quite a number, maybe 50 or 60 rides with Uber and or Lyft. And what you have to do is you have to sign up with either agency, one or the other. Uber requires that you use a smartphone, and they have been allowing people to borrow smartphones so that they could use Uber. And I don't know where they're getting the money from this. Probably this is part of the MBTA subsidy. And Lyft also asks, you can either use an app on a smartphone, or they set up a call center. So people who don't have smartphones can call. And so the shared ride system for Uber is called Uber Pool. And when they started the service, it cost $1. $1 for a ride up to $15. With a Lyft, it was $2 a ride. And for Uber, just the regular Uber cars, it's $2. And they also, of course, provide wheelchair accessible vehicles, also for $2, and Lyft as well. Well, the subsidy was raised in September to $42. That means that you could go from here to Livermore and maybe even somewhat farther on their paratransit using Uber or Lyft for just $1 or $2. And that is phenomenal. So I thought that this would be interesting, and I thought that this was very important. And I think instead of playing the interview that I did, because it's a little bit draggy, I'm going to hand this over now to Valerie Vivona, who is going to talk about resources and approaches to advocating for improvements here in paratransit. And Valerie has been a disability activist for many years, over 30 years more, involved with research and writing and grants and, just active advocacy. And we're very pleased to have Valerie today. So,
I want to start by saying, let me see, make sure that I'm getting this into the microphone. Hello?
uh-oh.
I know I asked to reposition it, so maybe can you hear me? No. Okay.
Just a moment.
It will happen.
We're readjusting.
It will happen.
Test.
Test it. Testing.
No.
Testing.
It's not on at all. Well, he has.
Try it again.
Testing.
Is it on?
It was working earlier.
It was on. It was working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody want to sing a song? No. Hey, Kelly, how about?
No.
Oh.
Hello?
Oh, yeah.
So I want to first start out, I don't want to yell too much into the microphone, be too loud. I want to first start out by saying that I learned a lot this morning from the people who spoke and just now. So it's been an education to me as well. And I've had my disability my whole life. And I use a power wheelchair. I don't have a visual disability. But I certainly am dependent on modes of transportation, and particularly in recent years on paratransit. I'm just thinking of things that occurred to me from listening this morning, that I'm a big believer in trying to explore as many options for whatever the need is in my life, be it care support, transportation, advocacy, whatever. And so there's been so many things discussed today that I encourage people to think long and hard about what of all these options that are spoken about might work for you in your life to explore further. Not that any of that won't have its challenges. Right now I use paratransit probably on a weekly basis. I have all the stories that you guys have. It comes with the percentages. The more you use it, the more possibilities to have. Sometimes I've had excellent service, and other times, as we know, things fall very short of the mark, and there are lots of improvements that need to be made. I was speaking with someone who does a lot of policy work and has done a lot even on the federal level about transportation. And I'm like, in my mind I'm thinking, I'm going to do this talk today. What is the most constructive way of advocating for paratransit? So is it filing individual complaints? Is it participating on local advisory boards? Is it giving testimony at hearings? Is it getting on the agenda of board of directors meetings to speak? And the response was, it's all of the above. And so many people have mentioned earlier today about picking, it needs to be en masse, but it does start with each of us individually. So I wanted to encourage people to pick the thing that pisses you off the most about paratransit, which is probably what it amounts to. The issue that's maybe the most recurrent, that causes you the most challenges, that interferes the most with your life, or getting from point A to B when you need to be there, or that you feel unsafe about, or whatever it is. And talking with other people that maybe have the same issue, and I'm sure many do, and coming together here at the center, where there might be space for that, which I know is going to probably be talked about later, to work on those issues, and to begin to make the phone calls and write the letters, etc. A lot of the stuff that I did to prepare is not so much to speak to you today, but to put together resources that you have in your packet. And I was told by Jan that for each of you, it's in an accessible format that pretty much would work the best for you, so I think that's great. And one of the things that I think is really important is it's from a thing called Topic Guides on ADA Transportation, and it's entitled Enforcement of Your ADA Rights, and it's a couple of pages long, and it goes through the process very, very clearly and simply of how to file a complaint, first at the local level, and document things about the who, what, when, and so on of what happened, and various alternatives for filing complaints, like through email, through websites, through the telephone, through the postal service. And it gives you really a very clear process on how to do that. And one thing I want to really emphasize, I live in Emeryville. Does anybody live in Emeryville? And that's one of the reasons why I have truly found out that there is strength in one number. And
that's right.
There really isn't. And so I've gone through a lot of advocacy efforts having to do with the Emory Go-Round and local transportation and issues in the city. And it's really very clear to me that, at least for a whole city, when there's just, one person trying to make the effort, it's really not as effective as in places like Oakland and Berkeley and some of the other places you come from, where there are systems already put in place for advocacy and local channels to get your insights into. So one of the things I want to go back to highlight about this filing a local complaint is it's really important that it's in a timely manner. So if something happens and you wait like months to go ahead to do it, it's really not going to be effective, because I've had things bounce back, even as far as Washington and Department of Transportation, basically because although I documented everything and I thought I was keeping a list of everything, I didn't actually go file a complaint for a really long time. So keep in mind that timely effort is really important. And then in the Bay Area, there are, as it's written here, in some cities there are disability communities and transit agencies that have successfully been building collaborative relationships in which to work together to improve the service. I don't know if you are aware of it, but I have a feeling you may be, that in terms of paratransit, East Bay Paratransit, there is a service review advisory committee. Have you guys been involved in that, called the SRAC, S-R-A-C? And in your packet, I included for this one when the next meeting is, which is Tuesday, November 7th at 12:30. That's a local group that meets, I believe it is, on a monthly basis. Yeah. Is that true? Are you aware of this?
I think they meet quarterly, unless it changes.
Well, I
have to check.
That's a thing to check out on their website, and also their basic number for paratransit to do that. And there's at least one person in the community that does a lot of disability resources and mobility kinds of things that is involved in this meeting. His name is Chris Mullen, and he'd probably be very accessible to speak with about this. So I would try to get at least Jan in touch with him and go from there. You have basic information on here about BART. That also, go ahead with which is on, this is on a website, Rider's Guide section, to find out about BART accessible services. If you go to the About BART section on the website, on the far right side, you can find out about when the BART board meetings are. BART, as you may know, as the BART Access Task Force, called the BATF, which does meet monthly to discuss issues affecting seniors and disabled riding BART. And again, it's best to probably check out when those meetings are on the website. What it says here is that they usually meet the fourth Thursday of the month from 2 to 4:30 in downtown Oakland at the Franklin. I'm trying to figure out where. Actually, I think BART is. This is best. Okay, this one is best to check out on the website or by phone exactly where they meet. And AC Transit, you've heard a lot about this morning. On the AC Transit website, if you go to the customer assistance section to find out about information on Title VI, ADA, civil rights information, which is available in multiple languages. And you can go also to find out about their procedures and complaints. There's a telephone number and a TTY number and address in your packet. One thing, going back to paratransit, there is a document that's included in what was provided today that's called the Federal Transit Administration ADA Guidance Circular. And I think of a circular as a one-page kind of thing, but this circular is about 379 pages. And so you have the information in your packet. Of course, you don't have the 379 nor would you want the 379 pages in that way. But it has everything you could possibly imagine that is covered under paratransit type services, including things like Dial-A-Ride. So it exists because anything getting federal money is covered under 504, the Rehabilitation Act. So all their policies and procedures in just hundreds of possible issues that affect paratransit is in there about what they do, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, and then there is also some information in some of the areas about how it's supposedly to be followed up on if they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So we're talking about stuff like everything from recertification to route identification to announcing stops to charging fares to assistance, giving people assistance in bad weather, reasonable accommodation, etc. And that's a document I'm definitely going to hold on to when I need to look up things. And for you guys, as you go along with your advocacy efforts and various topics come up, I think it's a really good place to go look at some more detailed information as exactly what they are supposed to do on the topic area. And you know, just to say, I didn't even think about it till today, but I'm 64, and like, and I don't know how many years ago, it was in the 80s, I remember going to an ADAPT demonstration when ADAPT did transportation before it did attending care, and going down to San Francisco in the middle of the rush hour and blocking the buses to go home.
I remember that, 87.
It was 87?
Yeah.
Thank you. Always off for a few years.
I covered it.
And I remember, like, a little bit deer in the headlights, but I really wanted to go, and it was me and 3 people blocking this bus, and there were all these people coming home on rush hour, you know, standing waiting for the bus, and some of them were yelling, screaming, cursing at you, like, get the hell off the thing.
That's right.
Why are you here? And then there was another woman who offered me her very elegant raincoat because she thought I was getting cold. So it's just the mix of the supporters and the people that just don't get it and just wanted to you to go away. And I remember, you know, people would yell legal, and the lawyer would come over for us, and they would say, you know, this is going to go on your record as a misdemeanor, and do you want to get arrested? And I'm like, oh, all right. And I remember, what the heck? And so I remember being picked up with the whole chair, going in the paddy wagon, the whole thing with the sirens and the whole thing. And then I remember getting off at the wherever they took us. But they were, I have to say, they were extremely nice to us. They were like, do you want a glass of water? I swear to God. And you know, and then we went up and they said, here, you know, it'll be a misdemeanor for so many years, blah, blah, blah. And I was always kind of glad I did it, and I like to mention it and talk about it, and I put it in some article I wrote and all of that. But the truth of it is, I never wanted to go on the bus. I was definitely afraid to go on the transit bus when I was younger, on AC Transit. And then I had to go. And I started going because I had to explore different options of transportation. And every time I would ride on it, at least for quite a while, I would think, I was so glad that I did that. Because I could see over time how they stopped looking at you when you were at the bus stop like you were the devil incarnated, because you were in the wheelchair and they had to go through extra stuff to get maybe help you tie down and get on the bus. And I really did see how it changed through AC Transit. About, I would say 80% of the time, my experience was that it went pretty well. And I felt really good about contributing to that. So, you know, we're all sort of at maybe most of us at a bit of an older age bracket now to start doing these things. But some of you have done some of these things already. And certainly the people you know in your life that are younger people with disabilities, to encourage them. So, you know, we didn't do all the work. Their work needs to continue as well as our own. So I think that's about it. I hope you will make good use of the references. I hope they're, and the resources, and I hope they're helpful to you. That's about it.
Any questions? Any questions?
Hi, it's Doyle. So I have just a quick question, but I'm going to put a context around it. So, you know, this is educational what we're doing, and that's the role of the center. It's a 501(c)(3). That's what that means, is we're educating. But at some advocacy groups, and I'm part of those too, they organize around seniors and disability. And what in Alameda, where I am, so we managed to get 2 of our people onto the Disability Commission. And what I'm trying to drive at is that, you know, in '87, people were doing civil disobedience. But from our perspective now, it's relationships. So the blind community is very strong at building relationships and building community. And if we are involved in educating the outside world, the primary thing you can do is to reach out and make relationships with whoever we can ally with and show them what you understand and what you'd like to see. And if they have a real relationship with you, it becomes very strong. So that's, I'm asking Val, what does she think about that?
Oh, I think it's an absolutely true. And this idea of the groups that exist, besides starting new ones, whatever you're possibly able to do, to get involved with what's going on and be, you know, come together with people that, how could I put it, that have some influence about how things are going, to find ways to channel ways to do that is really important. This, I think, today is a really great first step in doing that. I mean, there's tons of seeds here to be grown out of what has come out today. So yeah, I totally support what you're saying. And you may, I don't know, I mean, how you did what you did in Alameda. You said, you know, there's been some connections made and a group established. And I'm sure that didn't happen in a second, but you have to persevere is what you're saying.
So 3 years we worked on this. Last week I met with the city councilman, and he said, anytime you want me, I'll be glad to come and talk with groups or anything like that. 3 years ago, he wouldn't even have acknowledged I was alive.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
3 years is 3 years, and you stuck it out.
Yeah.
There are no shortcuts, is the thing. Go ahead. Oh, the microphone.
I gotta use it. Okay. I was just wondering, folks, if I were to get in touch, for instance, with this gentleman, Tom Hayes, who's in charge of policy and partnerships, would you all be willing to come and hear him and talk with him and have a dialogue? And hopefully we'll get more than him. We'll get some other folks from Lyft and really start getting them to think about this. And the other thing is maybe to invite a few of the AC Transit board members here, or BART board members here. So hopefully you all will participate with this, because we really need to let them know what we need, and we want to let them know that we have some ideas, that we're not just here to gripe and complain and say how terrible they are and have been, but we want to suggest ways to make things better. It's called Policy and Partnerships. So they work with other organizations, they collaborate. So maybe they can do that with us. Okay. Oh, sorry. Here, David.
Okay. I was just going to add, someone this morning, oh, okay. So let's readjust.
Huh?
Yeah, maybe that's a better idea. I think I can hold it because I'm not flipping the notes. So. Oh my God. Okay. I was going to say, somebody this morning talked about to find the way that's the best for each person individually. Like, is it the easiest, the most likely that it will happen? Is if you use the phone, if you write a letter, if you go email. Find the way that works best for you. And I was speaking a couple of weeks ago to someone who's an advocacy attorney, and I mentioned wanting help with something it doesn't have anything to do with transportation. And she cited this thing called advocacy fatigue. Because I think when you've advocated your whole life for a whole lot of things, you tend to start to feel like there's, I can't take up another one. But the truth is, it has to be taken up. So find the ways that work for you, that will most likely be the avenue you would pursue to go ahead and advocate on your own behalf and the behalf of other people. I'm going to drop the microphone now because we're
I think the idea of inviting Part board members, or AC Trans board members, and LIFT people here to talk to us and to have a dialogue is very good. Just don't have them come by paratransit, or they may not get here in time. But on a more serious note, so much of this comes down to money, and I think that if I could advocate one constructive strategy, if we could find some way to interact with AC Transit and with the paratransit system sufficiently to do some kind of a cost-benefit study,
Right.
I think it would be critical to demonstrate, or to ascertain at the very least, whether or not an on-demand system or systems of the kind, and there are a lot of experiments going around the country of the kind that have been alluded to already, but if an experiment of that kind would yield a cost advantage, I think we would be in a lot better position from the standpoint of advocating for change. And if we could organize such a study, that would be the most, I think, productive thing we could do.
Okay, I have a question. So I've attended these AC Transit hearings, usually locally at the senior center near us here in Berkeley. I've attended those, and my frustration with those is that they feel sort of like token efforts to me. So you show up and you say what you came there to say, what your point is perhaps about your particular bus route that you've like changed or whatever it is. In my case is that the service is so fragmentary now. The buses are it's so piecemeal. You know, you have to take 3 buses to get to where you're going, or 4. So then you say this and you talk to the people afterwards that are running it, and they're saying, oh yeah, oh no, we really care, here's my email, you know, write this, and then you probably don't get any follow-up, or for the most part they tell you, oh gee, I've never heard of this, I mean, I'm new to the agency. They're always new to the office. I think the ones that are new, they're the ones that get to do the hearings. So how does one advocate in a situation like that?
Maureen, this is David. I'm just going to say what I think, and some people may disagree, and that's fine. I think these hearings are absolutely worthless. I think they're held because of the Brown Act. They have to do it. I've been to many, many hearings, and they don't yield anything because the board has already made their decisions. Yeah. I think that it's very important for us to come up with constructive solutions to meet with these people. If we can either go to a board meeting and arrange to have lots and lots of public comment, or to get these issues on the agenda, or to meet with people just separately, like meet with the president of the board and get a lot of people here and let them know, hey, we've got 100 people here, and this is what we need, this is what we expect. This is the service. It's being done in other places. We would like you to do a cost-benefit study. We believe that you could save a lot of money, and come up with some figures, come up with some facts. The fact is that the paratransit budget is huge here. They waste, well, you see it when like 1 band per person, or I don't have to go into it, and we're not going to talk about griping today. But yeah, but I mean, we know the problems, and we know the waste of money, and we know that every, AC gets a cut, BART gets a cut, each of the 3 providers get a cut, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's very little money left for drivers, and we know that drivers are getting pitifully low wages. We know all these problems. So we need to document everything. We need to maybe write a position paper. We need to present things in a really good professional manner. And we need to meet with these people, and we need to say, look, we mean business, and we're not going to give up until we get what we want. And we have to have a lot of people. I think that's what Carol alluded to earlier today, too.
There's some interesting history here. As many of you probably know, The only reason that we have accessible fixed route transit in this country is because after the law changed to require some transportation services to be provided to people with disabilities, the people who run the transit system society would be cheaper to make fixed route available to people who could use it rather than to have everything done by paratransit. That goes back to the mid-70s. That's the origins of it. And of course, paratransit still has to exist to pick up the slack. But it's that kind of a cost-benefit analysis that I can't emphasize enough is the way to go. And there are good models in the research community for organizing such studies. And given the financial pressure that seems to exist on the system today and that exists on all transit systems for a variety of reasons, I think that would be a very compelling way to go.
And hopefully the CCB will be involved with this too.
We're ready. We're ready.
Yeah, this is great. Any other questions?
Oh, I just wanted to say that, without, going into complaints or anything like that, we don't want to all individually complain to paratransit, but, about paratransit, but that one of our members let me know that if you write to eastbayparatransit.org, that they will get back to you and actually reply to you. So someone is looking at their email communications, I guess. So, because when you call the service, they say they hear you and you don't really know if they really have.
Anybody? Do we have other questions? Doyle, David, is there anybody or? Nope. No? Okay. Valerie, good morning.
Well, I was just going to say, you probably maybe even know more than I do, that there are cost studies that have already been done on a lot of these things that are out there and it exists. And how one gets their hands on them to review them, to do the kind of thing you talked about position paper, in order to present information in that kind of a way. It might be something to look into. But certainly some of these things, the cost effectiveness and what's most cost effective and how they base their decisions on how they allot money has to exist in some fashion.
Valerie, thank you very much for your comprehensive packet and for talking to us today.
Sure.
And now we're going to take a very short break, and Leah is going to conduct a brainstorming session. Constructive, please. And we are going to talk about improvements that we would like to see in paratransit, and we're going to take notes, and then hopefully we'll act on them. Leah, it's going to be all yours. I will leave the mic. This is the table here. Yeah, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. And yeah. And the mic.
You're all right with the stand?
Are you using the wire?
Yeah.
Wired one?
No, wireless. Cord one.
Well, I don't want to be in anyone's way. Yeah, maybe.
And Vander is going to be that too.
I know.
Okay. This is.
Yeah, please put it in front of me. Got it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Go sit down.
Thank you, Denise. Yay.
Take a seat.
I'm going to give people a couple minutes to use the facilities or get a drink. I'm sorry, we don't have any martinis or margaritas in the kitchen.
Oh, God, that would be so wonderful. Why not?
House check? Yeah, that's good. We're good? Yeah.
Coffee.
Hi, Miss Lewis. I'll give you a call. Yes. So hopefully I'll see you. She didn't hear me right. It's you. Yeah. Is it anybody else this month? Leah? Yes. Leah Carter? Yes. Is that what you saying, right? Oh, okay. All right, I'll get to her. All right. Even though she hear her name. Okay, now let me do this. Marie. Marie. This is her. Okay, is she behind me, Marie? Yes. Pam. Okay. Anyway, Theodore. Okay, so you might want to.
Oh, Risa?
Okay, I'm going to go
Right.
Middle table, I believe.
Let's say this way, right?
Go to my right, it's half the work. Go past Josie. Josie sitting on the first chair.
Ooh, that sun is making it hard to see the screen. I'm like,
All right, I'll pull the screen down over there.
I mean, it's nice to have sun, but.
All right. Somebody in this bathroom?
This bathroom is open.
Thank you. I'll take it with me. Thank you so much, Bill, for all your help.
Right, the minute you do, you end the video, you have to start a new one. Yep, I know, I wish I could.
And I wasn't able to put like a part 2 or anything on
I think once you save them, you find if you can edit the title. I think we're all in the same boat. I think. See, I know we were on earlier because I got the notification. I looked at my phone at lunch. We got a notification. We were on.
You're saying the thing you got in your head, it's called a brain. Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're going to get going in just about a minute. So wrap up these pressing conversations. Get ready to roll. All right, everybody, we are going to get started again.
I know everybody's, the paratransit is probably going to start ringing the bell at about, after 3:30. So I want to try to get as much conversation as we possibly can into this last segment of our workshop today. I'm waiting for all these little conversations to quiet down.
Guys.
You guys in a talk, shut the door.
Really?
Well, we have about an hour. We have about an hour to go, and then you can talk all you want, okay? So what we're going to do this afternoon is we are going to brainstorm together on constructive and productive ways of approaching the problems that everybody in this community has with paratransit. We can also expand it later to just talking about transportation problems in general, but I know a lot of people in this room use the paratransit system. We don't want to talk today about the various anecdotes, because anybody who has used paratransit has been egregiously late to a doctor's appointment, has missed a social occasion, has been late to work, all kinds of things because of the system. What we want to talk about today is looking at all the different possibilities we have learned about and discussed today, and to try to develop ideas of how we can move forward as a community and try and first change in our paratransit system. So that doesn't mean just sharing individual stories. It means what does everybody want their paratransit system to be here in the East Bay, and I know we have some folks from Contra Costa County here too. So how do we move forward? What are some constructive ways that we can approach the paratransit system? And what do we want to see change? Does anybody want to start the conversation?
So we see your hands up.
Yeah, David is running the microphone, so wait until you have the microphone in your hand before you start speaking.
Okay, this is Earl, and yes, I can sit here for 45 minutes about specific issues, including the fact that today's Saturday. I don't have paratransit service at my address because there's some law that says if I'm 3/4 away from a running transit line, I don't get paratransit. Doesn't sound real fair to me, but okay. And I think, all of the issues that we all have with paratransit come down to one thing. One of those is that, at least in Contra Costa, the paratransit is not government. It is a private company working under contract with the government, and they want to make as many dollars as they can. To this end, we're baggage. Our time is worth zero. I don't feel my time is worth zero, but they feel that my time is worth zero. All of our time is worth nothing. So if they leave us standing out on the curb for an hour, or if they get us to where we're going late, if they don't make a meet for a transfer ride, this is all a symptom of the real problem. We're baggage. Our buses are miserable. They ride rough and they're noisy. I mean, they're basically cattle carriers.
What are you suggesting to improve?
Okay. The only way that I see that we can improve it, region-wide, is at the state level to get our legislatures to pass minimum service level requirements. I worked for a big corporation where I was on the governance team overseeing a huge contract for IT services, and we had service level agreements. We need to have set minimum service level agreements that all paratransit agencies must meet. Then we'll have a chance of addressing it. Right now, if there are service levels, no one enforces them. So this is my suggestion. Just go to our state legislators and get them, in California we might get this through, pass a bill with minimum service levels.
I think that's a great goal, Earl, and one of those things that we talked about in the last self-advocacy meeting was voting. Okay? We're all responsible for who ends up in our state legislature. And one of the reasons sometimes I think people who have disabilities, I'm going back to what Daniel was saying this morning, people that travel in different modes, I think one of the reasons that we do get treated like baggage is because oftentimes we are not considered of value. We're not considered important. We're considered important when our legislators, when city supervisors, when city councils hear from us in large numbers. That's when we matter.
Okay, so this is Dennis Shepard here. I think what Valerie said about having all of us individually, I mean, it's happened to me too. I've stood on the street corner for an hour. Everyone can verify that. Or it's taken me 2 hours to get to the place. Or I missed a funeral one time because I was anyway, we all have stories. But the point of it is I never complained about it because I just appreciated the service so much. And the fact that if we didn't have the service, I wouldn't be going anywhere. So that's the only thing that kind of, I hate to complain about something that gives me some freedom. But on the other hand, I think keeping track, keeping documentation on what happens and calling them in a timely fashion individually, I think that could really be a big help. And that's something I haven't done, so I just thought I could just pass that on. I think that was a good recommendation for that.
Yeah, I think, Dennis, a lot of people don't call because there's a grateful mentality. I don't want to complain about the system because I use it and I'm just thankful that we have it. Well, when you think about it, there are a lot of people with cars that can just get in the car and go anywhere they want to at any time. And one thing we talked about earlier today, Sandy Fancher talked about it, David discussing the Boston pilot program with Uber and Lyft, talked about it. Carol Kehoe was trying to get some coalitions built around this. The whole concept of spontaneity. Okay, I have a friend that's at UCSF Medical Center right now. I do not want to plan to, even though paratransit right now would be cheaper for me to go see her, I don't want to have to plan 3 days in advance to go see her and then plan exactly what time I'm going to go home. Because, I could plan to go 2 days from now and maybe she'll be discharged. Maybe she won't be in the same room and it'll take a while for me to find her. But I want to be able to go to that hospital and leave that hospital when I want to. Because somebody that can drive or that just, takes the bus can do that. Instead, I'm taking Lyft, which costs me considerably more than taking paratransit. But for me, the spontaneity outweighs this schedule restriction. So I'm wondering if people in this room feel like spontaneity is something they really want with our paratransit system, because I've seen people in other cities have begun demanding that.
This is Dorothy. Yeah. For me, I think one of the important things is the scheduling and training. I don't want to schedule a ride to come here to the center for, okay, to be picked up at 8 o'clock. And I'm on the bus at 8:40, and instead of coming here, I'm going to Union City, which is the complete opposite. And I think scheduling and training is important, and I think that might be missing. And as for complaining, I think we should complain, because they need to know what is working and what is not working. Otherwise, how do you get something said or get something done? And if we complain enough, maybe something will change. I've gotten answers when I've complained about being left for over an hour somewhere, because they simply, I don't know, maybe forgot that I was there. I don't know, but I think scheduling and training is an important thing.
So this is Jan. I'm just wondering, hoping that we can get some people that would be willing to come to a follow-up meeting to talk about these things. I guess maybe we're focusing mostly on paratransit right now, and try to develop some strategies that people would be willing to follow through with, and that we'd have to get people, I think more numbers of people to come. But we could start maybe with a few of us that wanted to just come and meet, and then we could try to pull other people in if they're not inclined to say it today or they're not here today. And the center's a good place for a meeting. We sort of have, as somebody mentioned earlier, Doyle, we have some restrictions on our nonprofit status, but that doesn't mean we can't educate and be a support and be a place. We just maybe can't do things in the official capacity or in the official name of the center, but we can help people plan advocacy things, organizational things, and this center is a great place for it, and we have ways of connecting with each other and then expanding. So I'd be really interested if any people want to give their names, that they'd be willing to come to a meeting to start planning about paratransit or some other transportation issue. We'll record the names here, and then we could get back to you and organize a time and place to meet. So I just want to suggest that, because I'm a believer in organizing in big groups too, and whether we do individual complaints or ideas, or do some kind of group statement, we can help each other do them in either case. But I think coming together as a group and more long-term planning some strategy things is really important. So that's my 2 cents.
Jan, are you basically saying you'd really like to see ultimately some working committees coming out of this, some working groups coming out of this? Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. Just saying. Just saying.
I would agree with that.
Me too.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
What?
I'm hearing a lot of agreement here around that.
I mean,
Committee come together.
even getting here to the center, I know we're not supposed to talk about individual issues, but Connie and I wanted to get here this morning, and so Connie gave Lee gave them a 4-day notice, and she called last night to find out what time we had to be at the curb, and they said 7 a.m. 7 a.m. for a 10 a.m. drop-off time is 3 hours. We used Uber. It took 33 minutes. 33, that's over 5 times as long. We're baggage. They don't care. They will never care until some law comes along and forces them to meet something. And again, that's my rant, and I'm sticking to it.
I'm wondering one of the things to look at though, Earl, is that you have the option of using Uber with your smartphone. And one of the things I see a lot are people that are they don't have a smartphone or they cannot set up Uber.
Or a credit card.
Or a credit card, yes.
Or the money to do it.
Or the money, because that's significantly more, I'm sure, than what you would have paid with Paratransit this morning for both of you.
It is significantly more, but it's gotten so bad. One of the things that I do, and I'm sorry I don't have the microphone, but one of the things...
Earl, can you hang on a second? I'll get you the microphone.
One of the things that I do as an exercise, and I offer this to everybody, to the paratransit agencies, our time is worthless. But pay yourself minimum wage. Give yourself $12 an hour. And then, based on the drive time versus the time paratransit takes up, including your wait time, figure out how much they're stealing from you. Even if you're forced by finances to take paratransit, keep track of how much money they're stealing from you. And keep track of that, and then tell that to your representatives. Say, these people stole from me $200 last month in wasted time sitting on a miserable, uncomfortable bus. It's not right, and once again, that's my rant. So.
I'm wondering if people believe that it might be helpful to work on the Uber and Lyft angle in terms of trying to develop a call center so that people without smartphones can use this as an option.
It already exists. Go grandparent. No.
Yeah, well,
they're really expensive.
Yeah, that's just what I was about to state, is that unfortunately GoGo Grandparent charges you for booking that ride and for the mileage. So you're paying on top of what you pay for Lyft or Uber. But what I might suggest too is that we look at trying to encourage Uber and Lyft to do similar programs to what they've done in Boston, which is work with paratransit companies to subsidize those rides.
That's what I was thinking.
You know, I live in Livermore right now. I have to tell you, if I could get, on rainy days especially, if I could get from here to Livermore for $3 instead of $35 with Lyft, that would be something I think we could. But I'd like to see what the interest is there for that. So not just working on paratransit, but working with Lyft and Uber representatives as well, to try and get them to be important.
Yeah, that would be a great cause.
So take a moment. This, how we're handling things. We're live streaming to the internet, so if you don't have the microphone, they can't hear you on the internet. So if you just wait a minute, we'll get them. So the next person is Lori. Thank you.
Hi. My issue is something that occurs before you get on your first paratransit ride, and that's the application process. First of all, when I applied, I didn't apply for a couple of years because I knew that their initial process was so demeaning. I really felt humiliated to fill out the first form. But once I joined or got, whatever you call it, on paratransit, I didn't realize that you had to be re-certified every 2 years. Now, the recertification process has been simpler in terms of the number of questions, but you don't always get the form on time. You get the form in print, and you don't always have someone immediately available to fill it out. I see two solutions to this. First of all, I know that paratransit knows that I'm blind and that I'm never going to get my sight back, so why do I have to recertify at all? I get every 2 years a handicap placard sent to me in the mail without any questions Also, there are most of us, or many of us, who have a computer. So if we have to recertify, which is of course ridiculous, why can't we recertify online? Also, when Mike and I signed up for GoGo Grandparent, they asked us like 3 questions and our credit card number. Why is the initial process of signing up for paratransit as complicated as it is? So my suggestions are that the initial process is simplified. The recertification process for anyone who has a permanent reason to ride paratransit, it does not exist. You don't have to recertify. And if you have to recertify, then at least one option is to do so online. And that's all I have to say.
That sounds like a solid working group idea.
It sure is.
From the standpoint of advocacy, we've heard so many good suggestions already here today, but I tend to look at an issue like the paratransit system much like a 7-layer cake, by which I mean this. There are issues that have to be advocated for at the federal level, there are issues that have to be advocated for at the state level, some at the regional level, and some at the local level. Let me give you just one brief example of each, because who you advocate to is often as important as what you advocate for. So for example, we've talked about minimum performance standards, minimum system performance standards. Those already exist in the federal law, but they're not enforced, and it's not clear that they're enforceable. Because the only way you can enforce them is by fines. And the only result of fines is that the service gets worse. So they're basically not enforceable under current circumstances, even though they exist in the law. And people have filed complaints, but nothing happens. There are other reasons why nothing happens, but on the state level, we could, for example, that would be the appropriate place to go to try to get momentum behind creating a regional system, which would merge the existing highly fragmented, more local or county-based systems into a regional system that would work. And that would have to be, and there's some history to that too. You can go back in history and understand how the BART system was developed, how and why, and what counties went into it and what counties didn't and why. But there are good historical analogies for regional systems. The Regional Transportation Commission now, indeed, is a planning or advisory or research body which has no authority, but the state were induced or were persuaded to create a regional paratransit system and hope that some governing body, such as something analogous to the BART board, could be created to do it. So that would be something to advocate for on the state level. On the regional level, there are a couple things, but I want to focus on the local level because there are a number of features of our paratransit system, which from the limited amount to be sure that I know about systems around the country, are very inexplicable for me, are very hard to understand. Some are not unique, but some of the unique ones are, for example, the system of, everybody uses private contractors. Nobody is going to use municipally or governmentally owned buses or public employees anymore. That's just not going to happen in anything. It's not going to happen in garbage collection. Pretty soon it's not even going to be happening in policing. But that being so, we here apparently use 4 different contractors. And I'm trying to find out. I've been asking drivers about this for years. And some people say yes and some people say no. There's apparently some kind of a quota system. Apparently some kind of quota system on the basis of which the rides are allocated among the companies. And I think that has something to do with the poor dispatching and the poor route planning that we've all experienced. That could be addressed locally. The issue that Lori mentioned, for example, the issue of application processes, partly that could be addressed locally. Part of it is national. The reason for the, I guess to use a popular term of the day, extreme vetting. The reason for the extreme vetting is the federal law says the federal funds can only be used to provide a transportation service to people who are unable, by reason of disability, to use the regular fixed route transit under specified circumstances. So they feel they have to go out of their way over and over again to find out who is that, lest they give a ride to anybody who doesn't deserve it. Perish the thought. Well, again, that's characteristic of all systems. That's characteristic of SFDI. Even the Internal Revenue Code, if you're blind, it can come up. So that is, again, a problem that really can't be addressed locally, but the issue of accessible formats for providing the information certainly can be. Another issue that can and should be addressed locally that I think makes a big difference is it's one thing for them to be late, but there's a problem of accountability in the sense that if they were going to tell you when they knew they were going to be late, and sometimes they do know because you call up and ask, they'll check and they'll tell you, oh yes, your vehicle is going to be half hour late. If they had some way to tell you that they were going to be late when they knew it, then you can at least, in some cases, make alternative arrangements, whatever. And this relates to another problem, which is, and this is partly due to the vetting process, but partly has other sources, I think, which is the emphasis on what I call the front end. I'm much more interested, first of all, in letting you know, they have this new phone call warning system, and letting you know in advance that your ride will be coming tomorrow, or your ride is coming in a half hour, which I think is rather strange. If you don't remember it, that it's tomorrow, I think calling me last night is probably not going to do me any good. But be that as it may, if there were equal emphasis, and this could be done locally, placed on some accountability when they are going to be late, that would be a tremendous advantage to people and ease a great deal of anxiety. Right now, I feel sometimes that every time I use paratransit, I have to also go for stress reduction help. So these are all just a few examples of how the pie can be split up and how the cake can be split up maybe into some more bite-sized pieces.
Thank you, Steve. I do have to say, I find it amazing, though, that there could be some special circumstances with the certification. I mean, if someone goes in there with prosthetic eyes and pulls their eyes out in the office when they're getting help with their application, you're still going to get a recertification application in 3 years, which is really, there should be some special circumstances. And maybe there should be a working group, too, to hire a resident therapist for those that use paratransit.
A blind one.
Yeah, a blind one, yes, thank you, thank you. Could we have, I've been informed there were some hands going up through this conversation, so I want to ask for everyone that wanted to ask a question or make a comment to put their hands up again so we can get around to you.
I just had a form where it was a real short one, and name, address, and phone number, and for paratransit, sent a thing back, and mine said conditional, so I called up. I have attended status, but I wasn't sure, and I was worried, so I called paratransit back, and asked them what is conditional, and they were saying, well, people should try to use the fixed route service if they can, and the only people that are written as unconditional is if you have Alzheimer's, because they know a person with Alzheimer's doesn't have the mental facility to use the fixed route service. That's what I learned this week. And then the reason I use more paratransit more lately than used to is if I were to avoid BART, and Berkeley's messed up, I'd have to get 3 buses to get here and 3 buses back. And I'm not as in good a condition as I was in the year 2000. I have diabetes, and I take medication that makes me kind of drowsy, and I'm scared to go down escalators. That was never a problem in my life. So I'm using paratransit more than I used to. And but I have a feeling when I was on the phone that they're trying to discourage people who aren't in wheelchairs particularly to use it. And that's my comment.
Well, that to what Steve was saying, it comes down to money. They would rather have you off the system than on the system.
Okay. The advantage of an ongoing local work group is we wouldn't have to keep reinventing the wheel. We would know who to advocate to on what issue. The advocacy wouldn't just be sort of random and a lot of time, individual time wasted. We would know who the key players were. We would know how to tell the story, how to write up something that is actually effective. In order for it to be effective, I think we need an ongoing work group.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to say that it's fine to go through all these levels. It's fine to say, yeah, we're baggage, but you know what? I don't care. Because what I want to do is get things better. So I don't want to dwell on what they think we are, because I'm a hell of a lot better than baggage, and so are all of you. So what I'm saying is that we should have a local working group. We should start meeting with the various players here, and if that doesn't work out, that we get all kinds of people by the hundreds, by the thousands, and organize a huge demonstration outside the MTC because they are the planning agency. They may not have direct authority for all 30 agencies, but they give money to all 30 agencies. And let's get all the meetings there, and let's start working. We don't have to go to the state. We can go here.
All right, everybody, can we speak into the microphone? Patty?
I have a suggestion back to not organizational, but that was very good comments. The system needs have some flexibility built into it. Let's say that you had a doctor appointment and they can take you early because you got there early, and then you might have to, because you don't know when you're going to be taken, you have to make your trip for, and plan for 4 hours in a day, and that's half your day just to go to an important appointment that you can't miss, and you have to take, and you don't have money for a taxi. People say, well, you could take a cab, or you could take Uber, or you could take Lyft, but you can't because you don't have the money, and your health depends on it. So that if you could communicate with them and let them know that I'm here and I have 3 hours to wait, could you please pick me up?
That's right, Patty, but I just want to point out you could take Uber or Lyft if it were subsidized, like the pilot program in Boston.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was my point. Sorry.
Hi, this is Jean again. First of all, I'd like to say, if you really think you're baggage, then you're going to be baggage. I personally think that when you convey that kind of a message to what your goal is, it's not going to work. You really have to have a certain amount of self-respect, determination, drive, and work together again as a people. One of the things that I learned when I was at ACB and I worked with Hazel Tinbrook, and I'll tell you, it's never left my side. And she says, status comes in numbers. And that's what we have to really focus on and work with.
Thank you. I wish there was a way, and I don't know if this can be realistic or not, but I wish there was a way that when they give us a no-show, when we weren't, when they make the mistake, we didn't get picked up, it was their fault, that we could penalize them. Well, yeah.
Take it off our money.
Yeah, give us a couple of tickets.
Give us a refund.
That's what they used to do before. They don't do that anymore.
I think Jean came up with a great name here for a working group. I like the idea of drive.
There you go. Awesome.
Dignity, respect, independence, vitality, and equity.
Yes. And also, I think we should try respect in doing that. I also think.
All right. Does anybody else have their hand up for the microphone?
I'm ready to say something, but the mic's not on.
Okay, hold on, Mike. The mic is coming.
Okay. Oh, there it is. One of the things we've been hearing on the paratransit line when we call to make an appointment these days is that there aren't enough bus drivers, so if you don't need to really take that ride, don't. Well, I've also heard from someone else, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard that our paratransit drivers are paid $15 an hour. And that is, they could make as much working as Burger King. And so what I've heard they're doing is they're getting their training to drive buses to paratransit, and then they're applying for jobs elsewhere where they can get paid. I don't know if it's twice as much. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than that at AC Transit. And so we're talking about being cheated out of money. Our drivers are being cheated out of money too. And the system is stepping on the drivers to make things work. So I think I I think we're gonna have to complain about the wages that the drivers are paid so that they can put buses on the road.
Well, Carol Kehoe was talking about coalitions this morning. I wonder if we could form a coalition with some of the paratransit drivers. You know, higher wages equals better service. Did anybody else have their hand up?
This is Josie, and get some of the drivers over here, and as a whole group here at East Bay, we can talk to the drivers about their complaints. They can, vice versa, we can talk about what we feel about them, and also get to somebody from Paratransit over here so we can sound off on our situations here with the group that we want to form here at East Bay.
Theodore, one day, Connie, myself, and Pam went to Chili's to eat dinner. We got there at 12:30. The cab took us at 12:30. They had to keep calling the cab over and over by 2:30 to pick them up. The cab picked Pam up first, picked Connie up next. I sit there till 7 p.m. that night for a cab to pick me up. And they said that they were so sorry they couldn't find the place.
Theodore, did you call to complain?
Yes, I called to complain,
okay.
And they gave me a no-show. And the waitress was there, kept on going out looking for them and telling them they had brought us there on East 14th.
Yeah, this gets back to, I can't remember who brought this up, but this gets back to accountability. At this point, there is no accountability for complete catastrophes like this. Because quite frankly, they probably would just rather you not go and socialize at Chili's.
Yeah, really.
And so we have to we have to find a way to encourage accountability. And how do we do that?
Hi. Next. Dirk Nyhart. Speaking of the mic. Thinking for accountability.
I can't hear you, Dirk.
Oh, I'll try again. Okay. Yeah, how's this? Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
I think there is accountability. I think if the drivers have no shows, it shows on their record, and their employment does not last that long. And of course, among $15 an hour workers, retaining a worker for a long time is difficult for any employer. But I think part of the reasons workers do come in and out with such frequency is that they are fired with such frequency.
So what I'm wondering if we could do is we could actually get people in this room to commit to being part of a working group to work on solving these problems and meeting again specifically to work on this. Because I see two tiers here of problems. First of all, trying to improve the paratransit system as we have it now. Second of all, maybe trying to encourage Uber and Lyft to get involved with paratransit to help subsidize their fares and create an easier, more manageable way for people to contact them that doesn't involve paying another entity a high rate to book rides.
Back up, Clyde.
Good afternoon, this is Claude Everett, and I think we have a serious problem in relationship to how the entire structure of paratransit is here in the East Bay. First thing is the fact that we need to have the entire contract between AC Transit and BART re-established because of the fact that the advisory committee is just advisory. That's icing on the cake. And there's no authority there. And there's no accountability because of the fact that the management system is not accountable to anyone, and the contractors aren't really accountable to anyone either. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Claude. Uh-oh, I'm off. Mic is off.
Let me get this thing started over here. Just a moment.
Sounds better, thank you. Well, I have just been informed that our time is up, so I'd like to say just a couple things. First of all, I really would love everybody in this room who's here today to commit to doing one thing that is going to encourage whatever transportation system you care about to think about the consumer first. If you've never called to complain to Paratransit, do it. If you've never attended an AC Transit board meeting, do it. Think about one thing you can do to increase our numbers as a community so that we are more than just baggage to the people that make decisions. Because it will make you feel less like baggage if you act, in a positive way. The other thing is, we'd love to, those of you who want to be part of a working group, can we get a point person to talk to about that so that we can contact you about getting together some kind of meeting before you leave?
Yeah.
Do we have David?
David's going to be, I'm off again. I'm off again. I guess this is telling me something, right? I guess this is telling me something here. So, I want to thank everybody involved in the workshop. What, Jan?
No, I was just wanted to know when would we get started with getting it? It's already been solved. If he was the contact person,
Yes.
people just need, let's get started.
That's right. Talk to David and, work out a date when people can meet. We'll get an idea of folks that are interested. All right? All right. Let's, but...
If anybody wants to do it, say it out loud so David knows and we can get back to us. Just kind of get back to us.
I think it has to be at a working group.
Could we maybe have a show of hands of people that are interested? And I'm wondering if Doyle or David could take note of those people and tell David. Well, that's fine, but I've been told we need to wrap up. That's why I'm.
Just go to David and tell him that we want to do it.
Well, so there was a suggestion, the people who have the hands up, go to David and tell them they want to do it.
When we wrap up here, go talk to David. We all know who David is, I think. All right, we're not wrapped up yet. All right. So I want to thank everybody who was involved in our workshop today, and presenters, all of you participants who showed up on this rainy, dreary day. I appreciate your drive to be here today and be part of a solution.
Well, we appreciate you too.
Oh, yeah.
And for all of you on Facebook Live who are listening or will listen to us, We'd love you to be part of our working group as well. And if you're in the Bay Area, you can call us at 510-843-6935 or email us at eastbaycenterfortheblind@gmail.org. And if you're not listening in the Bay Area, please try and reach out in your local cities.
It's gmail.com.
I'm sorry, .com. I believe it's time for me to wrap up. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right. Doyle. It won't stop.
So
I can't
first
find the
off,
button.
unplug the power. Okay, now let me look. The finish button is in the bottom right-hand corner.